Hey yo! Welcome back to the frying pan of the Chrispy Fried Take Sports podcast, where I give you some of the crispiest takes possible, or some that are just incredibly burnt. I'm your host, Chrispy, and this will be the last episode of the podcast, and I'll discuss more of that at the end of the show. And also, we are in a new country. We're in Russia. So, we're in, obviously, the United States. We're in Malawi, Africa. We're in Switzerland. We're in Russia. And Russia counts as another continent. So we're in North America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. So 4 continents out of the 7. That's pretty good. And anyway, moving on. Today in the frying pan, it's very similar to the last episode. But I'm going to give you more of an updated, little bit more of a recap on the NBA playoffs as teams are now finally eliminated. I'll also be giving you a more accurate prediction of the Dallas Stars in the playoffs. I'll also be talking about a recap of the NFL draft. And from Burnt to Crispy, oh my goodness, that was a voice crack. Holy cow. And from Burnt to Crispy, I'll be reviewing my final exams, which is pretty fun. Maybe not, because hopefully I do good in all of them. And as always, to close out the show, what happened today in sports history. It's April 30th, 2024, so let's get sizzling. In the NBA, it's still the first round of the playoffs, and I kind of forgot how long these series take because I was used to March Madness. March Madness was like a weekend and boom, you're in the next round. This is like 2 weeks. I totally forgot because they give these guys, like, you play the game, you get a day off, you get another game, and now they're giving teams like 2 days off in between games, and I'm like, dude, I'm running out of content to make. But anyway, at least a few teams have lost, so this will be a little bit more of a brief recap compared to the last episode. Last episode, I was like in-depth analysis on all the matchups, scores, predictions, and I was like, and I came into like writing all my notes today, and I'm like, wait, we're still in the same round. I think there's been 2 games that have been played. So, but I can give you a more accurate prediction for the second round, and I'll also be pulling up my bracket as of right now, and I'll kind of compare it to that. And I did a really good job. Man, my voice is high today. Maybe just because I'm excited. I did a pretty good job. I not to brag, but when I usually do ESPN fantasy for the NBA playoffs, I feel like I always get the first round correct. Like, I basically got all of, I know it's not over, but I think I've basically got all of these right. Besides one. I picked the Suns to beat the Timberwolves, and that didn't happen. We'll get into that in a little bit. So I'll be starting with the Western Conference. I'll kind of talk about what's happened, and I'll talk about the preview that I'm getting for the second round. And since this is the last episode, I'm going to stick with my future NBA champion of the Nuggets, but they've got a tough matchup to get there. So we'll start with the 1-seed Thunder versus the 8-seed Pelicans. The Thunder pulled out the brooms and just swept the Pelicans. And honestly, I feel bad for this city of New Orleans, because New Orleans, I guess, is that the correct way? Anyway, because they lost their best player, Zion Williamson, to the play-in, and they had to rely. And Brandon Ingram's not a bad player, but I don't think he was just ready for that leap to become like the star. I don't think he was ready for anything. You've got an old CJ McCollum. Oh my goodness, you've got an old CJ McCollum too, and the Thunder team seems to be more of like an actual team. More of an actual team. Youth, they've all connecting, like Jalen Williams on the Thunder, he likes to do the dog bark, woo, 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 woo. That's their whole entire motto, like when times get tough, or they're moving on, they kind of like to bark, which is kind of odd, but it works. So the Thunder are moving on to the second round in the West as the 1 seed. Now, I'm going to kind of combine the 2 seed and the 3 seed here, but the 2 seed Nuggets beat the Lakers. Darvin Ham is going to be gone as Lakers head coach. I know nothing's official yet, but he was not coaching that great for the series. And honestly, you can blame him that much, but LeBron's the one that got him hired too. Like, LeBron's the general manager of the Lakers. And so the Nuggets just killed him. Jamal Murray actually hit a game winner. Well, I don't know if it's technically a game winner. It was like less than 5. The clock was at 0, but it was like less than 5 seconds left when he hit the shot. But anyway, he hit the game winner against the Lakers, and the Nuggets are moving on. Now, I will say The Nuggets didn't necessarily look as strong as they were because an interesting fact was that the Lakers, like in total minutes played throughout the series, the Lakers led most of the series, like being ahead in minutes. So it's just the Nuggets were always able to come back. The Nuggets, oh my goodness, the Nuggets were always able to come back and just be in the lead at the end. I'm trying to find it, but I saw the graphic earlier. I'll get back to that in a minute. But yeah, the Nuggets just looked better. Jokic looked good, but they didn't look the best because obviously they were losing. I just kind of countered myself there. But to put it for certain, the Nuggets are better, but they're not the best. I guess I could have said that instead of talking about myself for a minute. Where is this? I saw the ESPN on NBA. It was there. NBA on ESPN. Okay, I'm trying to find the total stat. It's not wanting to show it to me. Oh, here we are. Boom. The Lakers led for 165 minutes for the series, and the Nuggets, while the Nuggets trailed 59 minutes. No, wait. Let me say that again. The Lakers led for 165 minutes in the series, while the Nuggets led for only 59 minutes of the series. But yet, the Nuggets won 4-1 against the Lakers. So that's crazy. So to put that in perspective, basically there's 48 minutes in a game. So basically the Lakers were leading the series for 4 of the total games. Basically for 4 total games in minutes perspective, they were leading while the Nuggets were only leading for 59 minutes, which is like a game and a quarter. So the Lakers should have won 4-0, honestly, but the Nuggets were just better coached, better team. And honestly, here's what I'm going to say about LeBron and LeBron's legacy. In my opinion, MJ's the GOAT by far. But with LeBron, he bounced around a lot. You know, he went to the Cavs and the Heat, then the Cavs, and then he went to the Lakers. And so LeBron hasn't had a core group of guys with him for most of his career. Obviously, you know, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh for his time at the Heat, but that was only like 3 years, roughly. And LeBron just hasn't been able to have that core group, unlike the Nuggets, who have the core group of, you know, Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and a good, you know, bench rotation. Am I forgetting? That's Jokic, Murray, Gordon, Porter Jr. Who's the other guy? Nuggets starting players. Who's the other guy? He's important too. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun. Okay, those are the main 4. And then it kind of switches. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Okay, there we are. But they've had that core group of guys for so long now that they just can read each other. They got the chemistry. They have the chemistry going on everything, and it really shows because Jokic is able to make those passes, those crazy passes that you see because he's just meshed with those guys for so long. And I think that's what's the most important thing, you know, with regarding the Nuggets and LeBron. And talking about LeBron, you know, saying how the Nuggets have the core group. If LeBron would have stayed with the Miami Heat, his whole entire, like, he joined the Heat and he just stayed there, I think LeBron would have 6 rings because Eric Spo, and also we'll talk about Michael Malone is a good coach for the Nuggets, and LeBron really hasn't had a great coach for his whole entire career in the NBA. Coach Spo for the Heat is the best coach in the NBA, and if LeBron would have stayed with him, I think he would have won 6 rings because he knows how to put guys around him. I mean, think of the Heat right now. They're without Jimmy Butler, and they're still in they made the playoffs. And they're the 8th seed, and they're putting up a decent fight against the Celtics. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But he led Jimmy Butler. I mean, they played in the finals. I mean, he has not really had that big starter, and they're still always kind of talking about. They're always in contention, which is crazy to me. And if LeBron would have stayed with the Heat, I think he would have 6 rings. He just wants to be the general manager of the team. He wants to have his friends, his guys, but he doesn't really want to be well coached. You know, he wants to be the coach, all of that. But the importance of having that actual coach on the sideline is huge because I just frankly think if LeBron stayed with the Heat, he would have one of the strongest arguments against Jordan. One of the strongest arguments against Jordan being the GOAT, but he didn't, and so Jordan is the clear greatest of all time. But that's kind of my little spiel on the Lakers and Nuggets. So Nuggets were just better. To sum that up, because I kind of counter myself a lot. To sum it up, the Nuggets were the better team overall. The Lakers led for most of the series. They just blew it because they didn't have a head coach and they weren't meshing as a team. And if LeBron would have stayed with the Heat, I think he could probably be I think more people would agree that he's the GOAT. So let's kind of sum up that, because I was kind of counteracting myself because I was finding the articles and the posts I found on ESPN, and they were kind of discussing that a little bit, so I just furthered that. Anyway, the 3 Timberwolves pulled out the brooms like the Thunder and swept the Suns, and that's where I got burnt, because I picked the Suns to beat the Timberwolves, because I thought, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal's hungry, and nope, they're just old. Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves, he could be the new face of the league. He's killing it out there. I mean, he looks like he actually does physically look like Michael Jordan, but he plays exactly like him too. So props to him. They've also got the team. The team is there, the team chemistry. It is very rare for, a player to just kind of, a team that hasn't been together for a long time to make it that far in the playoffs. Only a few times has it happened. I guess you could call LeBron's 2016 Cavs one of them, but that was just because LeBron was just insane that year. But yeah, the Timberwolves swept him, and he's got Gobert, a good defensive player, center, Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, the team chemistry is there, and people were laughing at Anthony Edwards. He's like, the Suns have Kevin Durant, but we have Naz Reid, and Naz Reid was playing excellent defense this series. So the 3 Timberwolves will be playing the 2 Nuggets, and honestly, that could be the finals. That is a finals matchup in the second round. Those teams seem like they're the best 2 teams in the league. And also going back to the Suns, this could be Kevin Durant's final years. We're kind of in that final era of the Steph, LeBron, Durant, era of the NBA, because those guys are getting old and all considering retirement. Even LeBron said he's just going back to hang out with his family, and he'll decide next year, which AKA means whichever team Bronny gets drafted to will be the team he goes to. But so yeah, the Timberwolves versus Nuggets. I had the Nuggets winning this series in my bracket, but I could totally see the Timberwolves winning. I think whoever wins that, oh my goodness, I think whoever wins that game will be the NBA Finals champion, will be hoisting the trophy at the end of the year. And the final matchup in the Western Conference, the 4 Clippers versus the 5 Mavericks. Now, I've already kind of gone in depth about all this, and the series is tied 2-2. It's the most competitive series, and there's 2 ways I can look at this. Actually, I'll talk about that in a little bit. The Clippers were up by 31 points in Game 4. The Mavericks came back 31 points, and then the Clippers just won by 10. The Mavericks tied it being down 31 in the first quarter, and they got all the way back, and then the Clippers, James Harden and Paul George turned it was the, not late 2000s, mid 2010s. Is that what we call it? They looked like that. They looked like 2015, 2016, 2017, those years, because they were just pulling shots, going crazy. I mean, if you look up if you look up a YouTube clip of Paul George in that game, it's insane. And so whoever wins that series will play the Thunder. And with the Mavs, Kyrie's been going off too. Kyrie's been going crazy, and Luka's, I can't really say he's been lackluster because he had a triple-double in the last game, but just his scoring and efficiency, I feel like, has not been as high quality as we've seen in the regular season. And this whole entire series relies on whether Luka does well or Luka does bad. If Luka does good, the Mavs win. Luka does bad, the Mavs lose. It doesn't matter who else is on the team, basically. But whoever wins that series will play the Thunder, and like I said, there's 2 ways you can look at this. The Mavericks, Luka, the young stars of the league, Luka Doncic, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are the youngest team on average in the playoffs. Those 2. And also MVP candidate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic will be going at each other. I mean, that is a great matchup overall. And then you could look at it as if the Clippers win that series against the Mavs. The Clippers have Paul George, who used to play for the Thunder, James Harden, who used to play for the Thunder, Russell Westbrook, who used to play for the Thunder, and maybe 1 or 2 more players that I can't think of. I don't think so, but it's like the old guard versus the new guard, because when all those players were on the team, Russell Westbrook and James Harden were on the same team at the same time, and Paul George was on the team when they were gone, but a little later. I mean, they all were great for the Thunder. They led them to the playoffs, but they just couldn't get the job done. And this new guard seems like they can, so it'd be cool to see the old guard versus the new guard for the Thunder. I feel like that would be a fun atmosphere to be in. And honestly, I think whoever wins the Mavericks versus Clippers series will beat the Thunder, because the Thunder kind of got lucky against the Pelicans, and this will be a true matchup. But hey, I may just be slightly hating on the Thunder, but they're more than welcome to prove me wrong. That could be a burnt take that the Thunder will get upset in the second round, but I think it's perfectly crispy that whoever wins the Clippers-Mavs series will beat them. And also, or not also, I'll be moving on to the Eastern Conference now. And we'll start off with the one Celtics versus the 8 Heat. Celtics won the last game by 20 points, so I have the Celtics winning. Nothing too alarming. The Heat are just hurt, and they're just hurt. They don't have Jimmy Butler, and that's who they need to succeed. Now, Coach Spo's putting up a great fight and great game plan, but it's the Celtics. They're going to win. They're up 3-1, so they'll be in the second round of the East. Now, the two Knicks versus the 17 seed 76ers, and wow, they kind of rattled. The Knicks have rattled Joel Embiid, because in game 4 at home at Philadelphia, it was overrun by Knicks fans. And Philadelphia is a passionate basketball town, but New York just overran it. And you could hear when Joel Embiid was on the free throw line, you could hear boos. And when the Knicks were winning, like, you could hear "Let's go Knicks" instead of "Let's go Sixers" or whatever they call it. So that's pretty crazy, pretty alarming for 76ers fans. And Joel Embiid, that's all he could talk about at the end of the game. He's like, I love, how do I do his voice? Oh, I love the 76ers, but man, that was overrun. I don't know. He's got a pretty deep voice, but he's also 7 foot, so that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, he seemed pretty rattled, and so I have the Knicks winning. They may not win the next game, but they'll definitely win it by 6. So Knicks will be in the second round. Now, Pacers versus Bucks. The Pacers are leading the series 3-1, and poor Bucks. I mean, poor Milwaukee. You've got Giannis hurt, Damian's hurt now, Chris Middleton's hurt, Bobby Portis got ejected in that last game. For game 4 of that series, your best player on the floor was Brook Lopez, who's like 30-year-old, who's like mid-30s. I mean, he was like your only starter on the floor. So I feel bad. I feel bad for Bucks fans, but the Pacers capitalize on it. They've kind of been killing them. And so the Pacers are going to win. They're up 3-1, so they'll win in the next game or two, and they'll be playing the Knicks in the second round. And overall, I think it's the Knicks. The Pacers kind of got lucky playing the Bucks in the first round, and I don't think they're the best team, but they're a good team, and I think they'll put up a better fight than the 76ers, but I got the Knicks winning in the second round. And so the last matchup of the Eastern Conference is the Cavs versus Magic. Now, Magic proved me wrong. I thought the Cavs were clear, far and away the best team, probably going to sweep the Magic. But the Magic came back and tied the series 2-2. It's turned into a home team series. The home team has won all 4 games. The Magic looked alive in that crowd. And how cool would it be if the Orlando Magic won the NBA Finals? Like Orlando, you don't think of them as a championship town. You think of Disney. Well, actually, Disney sponsors the Orlando Magic. You can see that on their jersey, like a little Disney patch. But I think the experience of Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen will outplay the Magic, but I could definitely see that series going to 6 or 7. But I'll have the Cavs, and I'll have them playing the Celtics. And the Celtics versus Cavs or Magic will be crazy, because the Celtics have kind of not been trying as much against the Heat. They've just been able to outscore them. They haven't really played the best defense, but so the Cavs or Magic could give them a rude awakening, and the Celtics are very much able to be upset. They're not the perfect team. They're not a perfect team, even though their record may say kind of otherwise, because they have the best record in the NBA. But so that will be a good series. And, since this is the last episode, I'll give, let's see here. Let me pull out the bracket, ESPN Fantasy. Let's see. Okay. So so I can get the bracket right. So this is my final thing. This is my the most up-to-date prediction that you can find from me. And so I'll have the Thunder versus the Clippers and the Mavs, and whoever wins that series will beat the Thunder. And then I think, right now I'd go with the Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves could beat the Nuggets, but also the Nuggets could beat the Timberwolves. That's 50-50. You could take whoever, and whoever's winning that game's winning the conference finals. And then honestly, I'll take the Cavs to upset. No, I'm not going to do that. It'll be a close series, but I'll have the Celtics beating the Cavs or Magic in the second round. And I've got the New York Knicks beating the Pacers in the second round. And so the New York Knicks versus Boston, I've got the Knicks. And so, I've got the Knicks versus Nuggets versus Timberwolves. And I think, that would be tough. I'd kind of edge towards the Timberwolves or Nuggets, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks won it all either. I kind of forgot. They're just heating up at the right time. But overall, I'd go with the Knicks, or not the Knicks, sorry. I'd go with the Nuggets as the team to win it all, just because Nikola Jokic is on there, and he seems like he doesn't care, but he always wins. So it's like one of the craziest things to see. But anyway, that is my up-to-date NBA playoffs prediction for the rest of round 1 and for all the way to a little bit of round 2 and all the way to the NBA finals. All right, now it's time for some hockey talk, where I don't know anything about hockey. Well, I don't want to say that. I do know Dallas Stars hockey, but I don't know anything about the rest of the teams in the league that much, besides the ones I've seen play live. So this is very much a guess and feel type of deal with the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. But I might as well go all the way to the Stanley Cup final on who I think is going to win. I know I talked about it the last episode, but might as well go all the way with more accurate and more, I didn't cover the Eastern Conference at all, and just try and guess and see how it goes since it's the last episode. But so the Dallas Stars tied the series 2-2 against the Vegas Golden Knights. I actually watched that game instead of really studying, but I watched that game and they looked pretty good. The away team has won all 4 games of that series, so it's that one it go in the Stars' favor, but hopefully we can win it at home. And we just looked good. We were able to score at the end. The Knights were really good early. They had way more shots than we did in this, 14 shots to 6. It was something along the lines of that. Actually, might as well go that. Dallas Stars versus Vegas Knights. We had, where's the ESPN? But they had more shots than us. Let's go. Box score. Can you do that? Scoring summary, penalties. Okay. They had more. It's not showing up. They had more shots than us. That's all I'll say. And the Stars look good. Wyatt Johnston scored again. Rupe Hintz scored in the empty net to kind of secure the win 4-2, but we looked good. It's a goalie matchup, like I've been saying. Both goalies are really good. 4-2 is kind of low scoring for these NHL playoffs, and it's close games every single time. So this can honestly go any way, but Stars in 7, we'll go with that. Stars in 6 sounds a little too cocky, so Stars in 7. Now now in round 2, we're going to be playing the Colorado Avalanche because they're up 3-1 against the Winnipeg Jets, or I'd assume so. And I think the Stars can win that. I'm going to say it again, but the Vancouver Canucks are against the Nashville Predators, so I like our chances there, and the Edmonton Oilers against the Los Angeles Knights. So the Oilers would play the Canucks, and I think the Oilers would win that, and the Stars will beat the Avalanche. So that would be those two in the Western Conference Final, the Oilers versus Stars. And that's a tricky game because I saw the Oilers play us live, and they beat us. I remember sitting at that game, watching it. I was with some friends that game, and I was watching it, and it was all Stars fans around us, and there was this one Oilers kid sitting at the front of the section. Every time the Oilers scored, that kid would just stand up and start cheering, and all the people in the section were like, oh man, I got to deal with this. And so it was pretty funny, but yeah, the Oilers are good. They got Oilers best star. Oilers best star. I know his name is it's David. No, it's McDavid. Best player right now. Best right now. They've got. It's Connor McDavid. I was right. Yeah, he's the best player on the team. He's the best player in the NHL too. So that would be scary. But hey, the Stars could win that game too. Just because I saw them lose to the Oilers doesn't mean they can't win the series for the Western Conference. So I have them going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So in the Eastern Conference, I have no idea about any of these teams. The New York Rangers swept the Washington Capitals 4-0. They look good. I know they have a good team. I don't know why, but they do. And then the Florida Panthers have a good team. They beat the Lightning 4-1, which is kind of surprising because the Lightning was a really good team, like 2018, 2019, 2020. But the Panthers went to the Stanley Cup last year, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they did. They went to the Stanley Cup last year. Wait, who was in the Stanley Cup last year? I didn't think I'd go this deep into hockey. It was the Golden Knights. Well, I know that. Who's in the Stanley Cup Finals? Oh, nope. It wasn't last year. Wait. It wasn't. It was... Where did they played them? They were in the Stanley Cup Finals. Oh, no, it was. They played the Vegas Golden Knights and lost last year. I was right. Well, these websites, when you type in something on here, it's hard. Like, they'd give you like a million different results and you got to scroll down and figure out which one's right. They give you like advertisements. It's horrible. Anyway, so the Panthers are up. The Boston Bruins played the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is a great name, and the Bruins are up 3-1, so they'll probably beat the Leafs. And I think the Bruins have been a historically good team, so I'd put them over the Panthers in the second round, and the Rangers would play the Carolina Hurricanes or the New York Islanders. And poor Islanders fans, if there's one thing I know, they're passionate about hockey, and I think the Hurricanes are going to beat them. But I think the Rangers and the Bruins will play in the Eastern Conference Finals. And why not go with the New York Rangers versus the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Final? And the Dallas Stars are Stanley Cup champions. I mean, that's one of the most accurate predictions you can make. So, Stars in 4. Stars in 4 Stanley Cup Final. Why not that too? But so that's like a brief little bit. I know it's kind of one of the shorter segments, but that's just because I'm learning about hockey. But I don't know enough. I know Dallas Stars hockey, but I don't know anybody else hockey. So that's kind of my hockey talk for, similar to the NBA, the first round of the NBA playoff, the second round, and beyond. Since this is the last episode, I have the Dallas Stars as the Stanley Cup Final champions, and also they will be a dynasty. Why not that too? We'll put that out there. Dallas Stars, a dynasty team starting this year, and so that's the final discussion of hockey talk. All right, it's time to discuss the NFL draft. Now, I could be talking about, the players that got drafted and everything, but that kind of happened a week ago. So that's kind of no fun. Everyone knows what players went to what teams. But I'm going to discuss, because I watched the NFL draft for, different than who are the Dallas Cowboys going to draft and if anything crazy happens. And there was like one or two things that happened. But we're going to focus primarily in the first round. We're just going to talk about the dynamics between families and people, because I don't watch the draft for the players. I watch it for like how the players interact with everyone around them. So, like when the draft starts, how loud is the booing of Roger Goodell? What is the mom versus girlfriend dynamic in the NFL draft? Because there was one instance, I'll get to that in a bit, where like one mom was just boxing out the girlfriend, and it was pretty funny, and also how often does the NFL draft talk about, I don't know why they do this, but the NFL draft, it seems like they just try to find someone that died in the family. It doesn't matter if it's like the mom or dad, which is like true struggle, like they got to overcome that. But then it's like they have the third cousin's brother that died, and they're like, how did this impact you? And the player's like, huh? Like they just dig deep, and it's like no one really wants to hear that. And then also, you need to look at what fashion do the players wear? Where do the players live? Are they, sitting on the couch? Are they in a nice mansion? You got to understand, more of just where the player's going drafted. I watch it for that because I think it's more entertaining, because in all honesty, the draft is just a Google search. You could just, like after the draft is over, like if you didn't watch the draft, you could just look it up on Google and find out who went to who in 10 seconds versus watching it for 3 hours on TV on ESPN. But anyway, we'll start with kind of the first few picks and we'll move on. Caleb Williams, of course we saw he went to the Bears. And if you didn't know about Caleb Williams, is that he likes to paint his nails. He has a pink iPhone. He has a pink cover for his iPhone too. So he's, touched he's in his feminine side, I guess. But I honestly don't blame him. No other NFL player or football player or any player paints their nails, and so he just raked in NIL deals from like those nail polishing. So if that's a business move, I'd say, and he made a lot of money off that. So that's kind of smart. I'd say that. And also, that was funny. The Bears drafted another wide receiver. Who was it? Rome Adunze. It's Rome Adunze. We'll stick with that. And they've just been hanging out with each other. Caleb Williams just can't stop holding up the bear claw sign. He just holds up the bear claw sign in any photo, any video. So, and they're excited to be together. You can see that. You can see that from a while away. And, so Jaden Daniels and Drake May, we could talk about those. They got both quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels was the Heisman winner, went to Commanders. Drake May went to the Patriots, and it was kind of funny, like Bill Belichick was like, I don't know if I'd pick Drake May, as he was still in the Patriots, but they need a quarterback. So granted, they need that. They probably needed that too. But we'll move on to Joe Alt of the Chargers. He's from Notre Dame, and if there's anything about Notre Dame, it's they produce good big men, those good linemen. And, it was funny in his draft video, he was sitting on the couch and he looked like he was in like one of those deep sitting couches where you just sit down and you just go all the way down in the couch. And so he was just sitting there kind of awkwardly. And then when he got drafted, he just rose up, stood really tall, and he looked massive. Gave his girlfriend like an awkward hug, but, not horrible compared to some of the other players we've seen. And he hugs his mom and everything. And then it's funny, he got a photo when he got to meet Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, and they were just standing, pockets in, polos. They were in their polos with their pockets after they shook hands, and I'm like, that's a lineman you want. Joes, I feel like, have a pretty good history of being linemen. I don't know what the stats are on that, but I feel like, you hear a guy named Joe as the lineman. I think he does a pretty good job. I think they typically do a good job. And, okay, so moving on from that, Malik Neighbors was picked 6th. He's from LSU as well. And he did not seem excited to play with Daniel Jones. And I would not blame him. Daniel Jones has not been – he's one of those quarterbacks. The most dangerous quarterback situation you can be in the NFL is have a okay quarterback, like a middle-of-the-road quarterback, because you don't know if he's good, you don't know if he's bad, you don't know if you want to move on and find someone worse. I'd rather have the worst quarterback in history. Well, obviously you'd want the best quarterback, but I'd rather have the best quarterback in history for a season, so that way you can do better. Having that middle-of-the-road quarterback like Daniel Jones is like, do we stay with him? I mean, because we could always take the risk to get someone, in the draft, and we don't know how he'll pan out, and free agency, there's not a lot of better options. So I guess we do. That's like the process that I think of general managers. And Malik Neighbors, he was very monotone. We'll say that in his conference, discussing his future with the Giants. And I also love how reporters, when they ask you, what is your, my favorite question is what is your goal, to be with this team? And what else are they supposed to say than win? You expect someone to say lose? Obviously the goal is to win the Super Bowl. You hear it every time, to win it all or to win. You hear all of that, or connect with their teammates. That is the most pointless question. Probably a top 10, at least top 5 worst question that a sports reporter can ask. We understand what the goal is. We know that's why they're getting drafted. The goal is to win it all. Anyway, I don't know. You can tell that I watched the draft, but the most shocking move of the night was the Atlanta Falcons picking Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. And you're like, oh, a team needs a quarterback. Well, not really. They have Kirk Cousins. They just signed him for 4 years, $180 million. And then you could be like, okay, Penix is probably young. He's 20, 21. He's 20. He's like 24, 26. How old is Michael Penix? He's 23, almost 24. He turns 24 May 8th. So he's 24 years old. If Kirk Cousins plays his whole entire contract, he'll be 28 for his first start. And that's kind of wild, because it's the end for most most quarterbacks, 30 is the end. And, being 28 and being a rookie, or 27, 28 being a rookie is kind of crazy. And Falcons fans were not happy. You can look up a lot of videos. The Falcons had a live stream of fans at their stadium watching the draft, and they were not. They were like, huh? They were not thrilled with that. And also a funny incident that happened was apparently the owner didn't know either, and Kirk Cousins didn't know until they drafted him. Like the owner walked down to the general manager and was like, so why did you draft? And the general manager was like talking to him like for his life, because like the owner seemed genuinely mad. And the general manager was like, he's just got a great future. It seemed like. I couldn't read the lips, but that was basically what I could tell. But honestly, I'd rather have the general manager doing that than Jerry Jones having drafted every single one of our players. He drafts, I will give Jerry Jones his credit, he drafts great linemen, but he also likes to give our game plan away. Because when he was talking before the draft, he's like, we like the running back from Texas. Like, we like him a lot. He's high on our draft board. And I'm like, no, you don't tell other teams that another player's high on their draft board, because 10 picks or less, I think it was 10 picks before the Cowboys were up, one of the other teams drafted the guy we wanted. And I was like, that's why you don't give away your draft position. If you watch the Bears general manager, like everyone knew they were drafting Caleb Williams. He didn't even have to say anything. He's like, we still don't know. We're still in consideration, So that's kind of my complaint with the whole thing. I kind of feel for Falcons fans. You have a great young lineup, a great leader in Kirk Cousins. You need one more player, and they draft a quarterback. So that's kind of unfortunate. And then I'd also it's also funny because Sean Payton, they drafted Bo Nix 12th. And Sean Payton, after the draft, was talking about how they tricked the Minnesota Vikings into drafting J.J. McCarthy because they knew they didn't want him, and they tried to trick him into trading up and drafting. They tricked them. He says he tricked them into trading up, giving up a pick or two to draft J.J. McCarthy. And I'm like, why would you brag about that? I mean, Bo Nix is like a solid QB, but he ain't nothing to be special about. I mean, they drafted 3 quarterbacks before him, and then they drafted J.J. McCarthy. So he is the 5th quarterback taken. So I don't think I'd brag about that. And they're not even in the same division. Vikings are in NFC North, and what division? The AFC South? AFC South division. What's AFC South is when the Broncos are. Nope. That is the Texans division. Broncos division. I can't think of it right now. Holy cow. The AFC West. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, why would you brag about tricking them? Basically, if you can't tell already, the draft just produces a ton of content. It's just funny to watch. And my favorite interaction of the draft was the New York Jets pick. They drafted Olaf Ashanu, number 11 from Penn State, and this is when, dude. So how the couch layout was Olu's dad was to the right of him, his mom was to the left, and the girlfriend was next to his mom. And they announced the pick. Everyone was smiling and happy, and the dad, gave his son a little pat on the back, a little lean hug, and the mom just went full bear arms on him, which is not, I'm not saying that's bad, but she was, the girlfriend was trying to, give him a little hug, and the mom was not letting go. I mean, her back was, against the girlfriend, not letting the girlfriend hug, and the girlfriend was just kind of, she had this big smile, the get-rich-quick eyes, but she was, trying to give him a hug, trying to be like, hey, I'm here too, and the mom was like, no, you ain't. And so I don't think we ever got to see the girlfriend hug him. They cut away before, and it was a minute on him. So that was pretty funny. You can look up. There's a ton of times where that's happened in the draft. I mean, if you look at CeeDee Lamb, when he got drafted to the Cowboys, he had 2 iPhones out, and his girlfriend grabbed one of the phones, and he just said nope and grabbed it back. And Russell Wilson, when he got drafted, his girlfriend at the time was had the biggest get quick rich eyes I've ever seen. I mean, you could see the dollar signs in her eyes. And so it's those interactions with the girlfriend dynamic is always interesting. And then the Bills were interesting because they traded their pick to the Kansas City Chiefs, which I don't know why you would even consider helping the Kansas City Chiefs if they've owned you the last few seasons, or more than the last few. It feels like the last 5 years. Well, I guess that can count as a few. Anyway. They drafted Xavier Worthy from Texas, which is the fastest wide receiver in the draft, and the Bills just gave it up, and they didn't have another first-round pick. Now, granted, they drafted 33rd, so they were top of the second round, but still, that was pretty interesting. They just helped the Chiefs again. The Bills just love helping the Chiefs, it seems like. Another interesting thing, there was a guy named Chop Robinson, and he's from Penn State. Now, why would a parent name their son Chop? Well, apparently they named him Chop because he was 14 pounds at birth, so they nicknamed him Pork Chop. That's 14 pounds. That's middle of the dumbbell rack at the gym. I mean, that's a lot. Props to the mom. We'll give props to the mom on that one. We'll do snaps for the mom. But yeah, that's why. So he was an NFL player when he was born. I'm just going to say that. And kind of like my final thing from the NFL draft was that a funny incident happened, and this video didn't happen until like the middle end of the draft. So there was in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the Carolina Panthers play close, or did they play in Charlotte? Where do the Carolina Panthers play? I've actually never thought of that. Where do the Carolina Panthers play? I've never thought about that. Okay, yeah, they play in Bank of America. Of course they play in Bank of America. They play in Charlotte. Okay, so it was in the same town. In Charlotte, North Carolina, there was a small business, like a coffee shop, it seemed like, and they had a sign outside their window that said, please let the coach and general manager draft the picks, because if you don't know, the Carolina Panthers have been horrible the last few seasons. They've been horrible they've been horrible after Cam Newton left. I mean, they've just been bad. Bad, bad, bad. I mean, they were bad. I'm going to keep on saying they were bad because they were bad. They just don't have anything around them. But anyway, the owner of the Carolina Panthers happened to drive by that. It hurt his ego so much that he came into the store or the coffee shop and started like berating the people at the front desk, saying like, you don't know what you're doing. There was no audio, but that's just what I can assume. It was like, he was being so rude. I'm like, if you're that sensitive, you need kind of a check. Like that's messed up, because why? I mean, they're right too is the funny thing. Like if they won the Super Bowl and that was happened, like, okay, but they're right too. I mean, that team sucks. Stop drafting your own team as the owner. That's what Jerry Jones does. And the Cowboys, they're a headache. They are a headache. I'm not even going to get into that because they're a headache. But that's actually is kind of the recap of not necessarily who got drafted where, because that would take forever. This is just a draft from the first round of the, family dynamics, of all the things that could happen, just all the content that came out of the draft, because the draft is sneaky in producing the most amount of content, like in the span of 4 days or 3 days, it's the same amount of content as like opening week at the NFL. So that's kind of my recap on all the player family dynamics that happened in the NFL draft. And on the final Burnt to Crispy on the Crispy Fried Take Sports podcast, I'll be ranking my classes. Kind of my final exam too, but I'm going to kind of combine those, the final exam and my classes. And the contestants today are English 1302, Spanish 2, History 2. I don't know. I just know English is 1302. I don't know what the official number is for all of them. But anyway, business calculus and sociology. And in the burnt department, it is business calculus. I am not a math person or a science person, really. I'm an anti-STEM kind of person. I'm not good at any of those. That is my lowest grade by far. I am at a 79.49 in that class. So all I need is 0.1 points, and I round it up to an 80. Of course, I have the final, and I did the math. All I need is a 74 on the final to get a B. So hopefully that'll happen. I've been studying a little bit. We'll be studying a lot. And that's like the first final two I have. That's also why it gets put in the burnt department. The one class that I actually need to study for the final, the others are like essays, where I'm pretty confident in that class, are like way later in the week. Business calculus is 8 a.m. on the first day of finals. It's rough out there, but I'll power through. But honestly, I'm just not a math person, and so therefore business calculus goes in the burnt department. And fourth, now it gets a little tough. Okay, there is a clear gap between 5 and 4, 3, and 2, and 1. I'm going to say that. And I'm gonna go with English. Ooh, yeah, I'll go with English. Now the final exam's pretty easy. You just gotta write like 20 papers, or not 20 papers. You gotta write 20 pages that you've done throughout the year, and I'm done with them already. So I just gotta turn it in and write like a little semester recap thing. It's not that bad. It's just I like English, but I'm not the biggest English, fan. I don't know. This one's tough. The discussions of the class are very interesting, but as someone who's not going to English, like as a comms major who's not going into like English, only really English majors like English, I enjoy researching topics that I'm interested about and reading a book every now and then. But English will go forth because I'm just not. Writing is only if I really like the subject. English is like higher level English. This is a class I got to write whatever I want to write about, but higher level English you got to write about whatever, and I'm not into that. So I guess English kind of suffers from just not that class, but future classes. But I like this class a lot. It was a good class. And third, I'll go sociology. Sociology was good. Now, sociology and English are pretty interchangeable. It's just I said English first. Honestly, it's at the front of my screen. That's why I said 4. But sociology, I'll put at 3. I like the lectures in the class. Very interesting. I did well on the multiple choice test. I've got an A in that class, so hopefully we'll stick with it. And yeah, it was pretty fun. Liked it a lot. Pretty interesting. I know I'm just going to say the same thing. Liked it a lot. Pretty interesting. But, I mean, it truly was. All my classes were. But I will say that it's not my kind of field. Like, I'm not a theorist kind of person. I'm just like, say it how it is or how it is. I don't think exponentially. Is that phrasing right? Like a philosopher. I don't really think like that. So that's why kind of sociology gets third. Now, Spanish and history are the 2 in 1 category. And I'm going to go Spanish as 2. Great class, great professor. Spanish is a little hard to learn sometimes, but it's fun. It's a small class. I only have 9 people in that class. It's fun, but, Spanish isn't really my thing, but I had a lot of, I have a 89 in that class, so maybe I'll get an A, but fun. Hopefully the language will stick with me a little bit. So that way, if I ever need to communicate in Spanish in the future, I can, or else I guess it could be kind of a waste of money, but it's required. So I guess not. But hopefully, I can continue using it. I think this is one of the few classes that you'll actually be using in the real world. So that's why Spanish gets 2. And number 1 is history, U.S. history. History is great. Especially my professor, he tells it like a story. And it's one of the best classes ever. The assignments they engage you, but they're relatively simple. And I have a 100 in that class too, so that could also be why I have an A. And I just enjoy learning about, everything that happened, because I feel like a lot of people could learn from what happened in history, especially politicians. I feel like half our problems that we have nowadays, if you just looked at history, we could better understand it. So that's why history gets 1. So from burnt to crispy, it'll be business calculus 5, English 4, although it is interchangeable with sociology. Sociology 3, Spanish 2, English 1. And kind of, moving on today in sports history, it's April 30th. And on this day in 1900, weighing in at 170 pounds, British former heavyweight boxing champion Bob Fitzsimmons knocks out 270 pound, a 100-pound weight difference. He knocks out American Ed Dunkhost in round 2 of a lopsided bout in Brooklyn, New York. Now, I don't know anything about this. I just kind of found it on literally one of the, Today in Sports History's website, and I just thought that was interesting. All of these stories that happened like back in the 1900s sound crazy. Like I couldn't imagine today if someone 100 pounds less than someone knocked him out in the second round of a boxing tournament. So that's pretty that's pretty crazy. And so we're going to move on to that. We're going to move on to this next topic and kind of the conclusion of the podcast. This is the last podcast. This is the last podcast episode of the Chrispy Fried Take Sports podcast with Tarleton. I will be at A&M next year, Texas A&M University next year. So I would not be able to do this podcast. Obviously, because I'm in the recording station at Tarleton right now. Loved my time at Tarleton. Everything's been great. This has been such a fun learning curve with everything. And I'll probably have a new podcast coming out within, maybe over the summer I'll have a new podcast with more guests on it instead of just me rambling all the time. But this podcast has just been mainly for me to practice being comfortable on my mic on air. And I bet if I go listen back to my first episode after, listening to this last episode, hopefully there is a big improvement. I bet there will be. But this has been fun. And if you're interested in following me on Instagram, you can follow me at Chrispy18 on Instagram. It's all lowercase CHRISPY_1_8. And that is my Instagram profile in case you want to follow. And maybe I'll post when I get a new podcast, eventually. This has just kind of been practice. Nothing big, nothing crazy. But it is cool that I'm in 4 countries and, 4 different continents. So I've thoroughly enjoyed that. And I just want to say, thank you to everyone at Tarleton for allowing me to do this. Shout out Lance, the radio manager, for letting me be able to do this. And so this has been a fun practice. What more can I say? And so with that, I want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Crispy Fried Takes Sports Podcast. Hopefully you may want to still follow us. I'd recommend following the Tarleton Radio Network with all their great podcasts they have on there. But hopefully if you ever need a sports take from the year 2024, from like February to April, I'm here for you. And who knows, maybe I'll look back on this in a year and this thing has grown exponentially. Who knows? So hopefully you can follow the Tarleton Radio Network. And I just want you to let this episode sizzle in a bit. And thank you for being with me every single week. Oh my goodness, I can't speak. Thank you for being with me every single week. I just want everyone listening to have a great rest of their day. Thank you.